We are proud to celebrate 50 years of volunteers making a difference in the lives of patients and families at Ontario Shores. Through the years, volunteers have played an active role in both recovery and the day-to-day operation of our specialty hospital. In honor of this significant anniversary, we asked a few of our volunteers to share their personal experiences at Ontario Shores. On behalf of Ontario Shores and our patients, I want to thank all of our volunteers for their valued contributions in the journey of discovery, recovery, and hope.
Beth Paddick has spent a lifetime at Ontario Shores in many capacities. Considered the unofficial historian of the finance department during her 30-year career, Beth became a caregiver to her husband Les following his diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and eventual admittance as an inpatient on the geriatric dementia unit. Touched by volunteerism during Les's time on Ontario Shores, Beth decided to give back and became a volunteer herself following the passing of her husband.
When your husband was in care here, what was your life like in terms of providing care for him while he was here? Like, were you visiting lots, and what was your relationship like with staff and volunteers?
I visited a fair bit, and at the beginning I was every day, and then eventually the staff say, you don't need to come every day. So I tried to space it out, but the staff were really good. I saw another side of being here at the hospital. Being in finance all over 29 years, I didn't see the medical side of it. So it was a good experience, not that I wish any family member to be sick and to have to have any mental issues. But I did see that side of it and how the staff, what they have to do and what the knowledge that they have to have and the compassion that they have and the understanding of the disease.
Was there a particular volunteer that your husband responded to well, or had that you had a relationship or that you remember fondly?
There was one volunteer, and Judy Haight was one that came into the unit, and when he saw her, he just lit right up, and he was, because she's very bubbly person, very happy and always smiling, and greeted all the patients on the unit, went around to each one, and she used to say to me that she was sure he thought that it was me that it was, and he knew it was her. So she just had that very pleasant and very just happy personality that she, the patients really enjoyed that and really smiled and lit right out when they saw her. Yeah.
As somebody who's caring for a loved one, who's on a unit here at the hospital, and probably going through some very difficult times, difficult for you to see him in struggling with certain things, mm-hmm. and then you see somebody come in and make a difference for him, and even if it's just for a moment, because you mentioned like the way his face lit up or the way he reacted. What does that mean to you, or what did that mean to you to see that kind of change in your husband, even if it was just for a few moments?
Oh, it was it made me feel good that a volunteer or even any staff, and eventually the staff became his caregivers. And any volunteer like Judy coming in to do that, that was nice, that to be able to see him smile and knowing that there was that still in him, that he could do that.
Did you ever dream that you'd have dedicated so much of your life to this organization?
No, not really. I guess I never thought of it. I thought of it at the beginning just as a job, and never thinking that I would have gone through the 3 stages or would still be connected to the hospital. There's still some people here who were working here when I was here, so it is nice to see them. and I've met some new people and new volunteers and that, so it's been a great family, and it's been a great experience.
Speaking about, I think you mentioned her name being Judy, the volunteer that your husband was involved with. Have you ever told her what that interaction or that relationship meant to you and your husband?
Yes, I have, and I do see her in the summertime. Her and we lawn bowl together, and she will mention, I have one grandson that does look like my husband and has blue eyes like my husband. So she tells him, and he'll be soon 10. She tells him every time she sees him, "You look like your grandpa, and your blue eyes, and how, and I have told her, that same thing, that what an impact she made with him, with my husband, and that, so yeah."
Emma and Duncan Green are not twins, but many would consider the brother and sister tandem to be, and to have always been, inseparable. They are both heavily involved in competitive figure skating, attend the same university, headed into similar fields, and both currently serve as volunteers at Ontario Shores. Both Emma and Duncan have a passion for helping people and are grateful for what the experience of volunteering at Ontario Shores has meant to their own personal growth and development.
How do a brother and sister both end up volunteering at Ontario Shores?
Well, we're both in our school's co-op program, and a lot of what they do is they say, if you're going to do what you want to do, you need to actually have some experience. You need to be able to volunteer and say, like, no, I have done what I'm interviewing for, or this is what I want to do with my career. I actually do know what I'm getting into. And because I was like really mental health related, I'm like, okay, well, I know we have Ontario Shores and Whitby, so I'm going to go try there. And so I was here for about a year, and I got like a really good hands-on experience. And I remember going for a job interview, and they literally said, "Oh, you've done work at Ontario Shores?" I said, "Well, yes." And literally my entire interview was just me talking about what I've done there. And I stood up, and they're like, "Yes, so how do you feel like coming to work for us in 4 months?" I'm like, "Oh, that was my interview. Great." So I think when Duncan started, I was like, okay, you know what? If you're gonna do what sort of similar to what I want to do, you should try to come down to Ontario Shores too, because they've been really great with me. Like I said, I'm really interested in research. I'm really interested in like adolescent or child psychology. And they were very careful to like place me in areas where I could actually learn from that. So with Duncan, I said like, okay, if you're not entirely sure what you want to do, but they're really good at giving you an experience of what happens. So I think you were probably like a year after me.
Yeah, and I think I started in the adolescent unit, and then they actually had a whole bunch of discharges, which was great. It was like that, like that's something where it's just like you're no longer needed. Yay! Like that's great. It's not because obviously not because I don't want to work there, but it's more it's great seeing people leaving. It's great seeing people getting discharged. Then I got shuttled over to the young adults unit because they figured it's like, you know what, you're about late teens, early 20s now, and says you're probably around the same age as a lot of the clientele there. Says, why not like just be a face there? That's not a clinician. That's not a nurse, psychiatrist. That's just someone to talk to. And that worked out really well until, again, their schedules changed. And now I'm more in like the variety drop-in center where I talk to a lot of people from different units. So it can be anywhere from adolescents to geriatrics, anywhere in between.
Getting back to volunteering on Ontario Shores, was the experience maybe what you expected or more than you expected? Like, or what's that process like? There's a lot of stigma associated with not only mental health, but this place. It's been around for a number of years. So maybe give us a sense of what your perception was and what your experience has been like working with people.
Well, it's really cool because whenever I tell people like, I volunteer on Ontario Shores, they're like, oh, so you do paperwork, or you do filing, or you do like welcome to Ontario Shores. I'm like, no, I'm actually on the units with the like people, and they all kind of like stare at you like, really, they let you do that? And you're like, well, yeah, like we're taught what to do, which I thought was really, really good, because with what I'm interested in, it's a really good almost introduction to what I want to do. So you do get that training, and then you start interacting with people that maybe even in the back of your head you're like, no, I'm going to treat everybody the same. You're still kind of like in the back of your head the same, like, oh god, what if I screw up? What if I say something wrong? What if I act wrong? And I found like even if I do like sometimes like slip or say something that I'm like, oh no, what did you do? I've never had anybody like say anything negative about it. They're like, hey, you know what, everybody makes that mistake. Like working with adolescents, they've taught me like thousands of things. Like sometimes everybody slips up, but they're always just like, yeah, you know what, it happens. Next time we don't say it like that, or here, why don't we tell you what's going on? And I've thought that was, you learn from textbooks, and sometimes textbooks make things almost terrifying. They're like, oh, this is scary, and this is scary, and this is awful, and these people are like, horrifying, and you're like, no, actually these people are lovely and normal, and for lack of a better term, but they're just nice people that you get to meet and you get to talk to. And I've always thought that was a really good experience, and I've always tried to send other people here. So I've had tons of friends that I've said, go to Ontario Shores, go volunteer. If you want to do mental health or social work or working with youth or working with like older populations, go to Ontario Shores, because you're actually going to learn what it's like, and it's not like you learn online or you learn in a textbook, because they're still people, and it's a really good way of getting introduced to that.
When you look back at your time, you've mentioned a couple of experiences already, but is there a particular moment or interaction with a patient or a staff member, family member, whomever, that you would look back fondly as particularly rewarding?
Oh God, with adolescents, like that's just one of them. I remember I worked with a girl for about a year. She was on the unit for an entire year, which you don't always see. Like people, it's usually a few months or 6 months, or sometimes you get them back. Like having her for a year, and I was there for all of it. And I remember the day she went home, and we're both sitting there crying, and we're just like, no, we're really happy, but we're crying, and like, but it was really great to see that here's somebody that you've worked with for so long. They're finally getting that opportunity to kind of go out on their own and see how everything's going now. And I just thought, like after a year, you kind of get so attached, and sitting there crying like a giant dork in the hallway, and everybody's like walking by like, oh my God, are you okay? And you're like, no, I'm really happy, like don't mind me. And like the other girl's crying, and you're just saying that, like, this is actually amazing. Like it's nice sometimes to be able to see that outcome, because sometimes you don't always see that. Like I've switched on and off units a lot, so I don't always see everybody. But I remember just being able to, this whole time with this one girl, I just remember I was like, oh my God, thank God, you're like, everything's like looking up a bit now. So it was a really good moment, and I thought it was awesome.
So I'd say for me, it was when I got shifted towards the young adult unit. There was a particular client that would never talk to anyone and talk periods. Like it was very difficult to get much of a word out of him, and I just I don't know, for some reason just developed an interest in him, just trying to get open some sort of communication, and it took months of almost talking at him and just trying to get something going on. And then just one day, just the floodgates opened, and he just talked and talked and talked and talked for hours on end. And then I would have the nursing staff just looking at me, just like, what's going on? Because he would have this client who hadn't really said anything in months, if not longer than that. And then you just have him just with these great conversations. And unfortunately, a little while later, I had to sort of just go on a brief hiatus because my scheduling had changed, and schooling and exams. Went back, and I never saw him again, which on the outside seems bad, but it's great because I know he's off doing his own thing now. And that was probably one of the greatest things, where it's just like this guy who, when I first met him, just couldn't even talk to anyone, and now is off in the community just doing his own thing, which is really, really great. And I inquired, and he said he was in the outpatient unit now, just sort of dropping in every so often, just checking up on his progress. It's going great, and it's fantastic.